It's truly my pleasure this morning to introduce our speakers. This is week 2 of ROC, and we've got some great folks here that Pastor Jake and I have had the opportunity to meet and be kind of partnered with for multiple years now. And their names are Dave and Brenda Cox, and they just recently moved to the United States. They were in the UK, in Hexham in England, running a center for the ministry Betel. And Betel is a ministry, and they'll tell you all about it, but it's a ministry that really serves a lot of the folks who need recovery, alcoholism, drug addiction, homelessness, but they do in such a unique way in that they really build a church around people that most churches are not interested in. Most churches, that's not their key demographic. I shouldn't say they're not interested in, but I would say it's not their key demographic when you're building a church, right? And yet they seek to impact people's lives in that space and build a church around them and disciple them, and it's so cool. Pastor Jake and I had the opportunity to visit the UK in 2018 and 2019 to see the work, and today they're going to come up and share all about their ministry. We're going to get a word from Dave, and we're super excited about that. So without further ado, welcome to week 2 of ROC.
As people from every tribe and every tongue and every nation by your blood have been called.
And I saw gathered around the throne singing, "Worthy is the Lamb, for you were slain, and purchased for God with your blood men from every tribe and every tongue and every people and every nation."
Good morning, church, and thank you to Josh and to Pastor Jake for inviting us and being willing to share your stage with us and invest in us. And thank you, those that are tuning in online. I know there's lots of interesting things online you can be looking at, so thank you for tuning in. And, you know, as Josh said, we are a part of a work called Betel, and Dave and I have been together a part of that work as a married couple for 17 years. Dave's been involved in the ministry for about 21 years and 19 for myself. But basically, as Josh said, Betel is essentially a church plant for the brokenhearted, for those that are on the outskirts of society, that are struggling to fit in, drug abuse, prostitution, homelessness. Essentially, we are a church plant for that population. In the early 80s, there was a group of missionaries that went out to Madrid, and their goal was to set up a church amongst the students, amongst the university, the intellectuals, and they wanted to build church there. And as they were doing their outreaches, as you did in the 80s, the open air tent meetings, they weren't getting any students. They weren't getting any businessmen or women or intellectuals. They were getting the drug addicts, the prostitutes, the homeless, those that were living out on the dumps. Those were the men and women that were coming to their meetings. And so rather than going, oh, maybe we need to shift our tent, they said, this is the people that God is bringing to us, and this is what we're going to build church with. And so they started taking people into long-term community living. And so what we are doing is we are looking to help the individual, not just spiritually, we do that, but first we're meeting their physical needs. You know, we're coming in and we're helping them to get clean from their drugs, learn how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, learn routine, and as they get physically well, then we're able to feed into them spiritually. You know, we do devotionals on a daily basis with the men and women. We do weekly Bible studies, and we do church. And so that's what it is. And just, if I can back up, you know, personally for me, as I was growing up, and as I was in university and things, I always wanted to work with the homeless population or people in addictions, but I always felt like I wanted to be a part of something that was more than just providing soup and a bed. That was more than just, here's a bit of food, here's a place to sleep. I wanted something that was equipping people, that was showing them how to then live their life, that was giving them a platform for that. And so in 2003, I had an opportunity to go and visit Betel in the UK. And when I saw what Betel did, I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I always thought I wanted to be a part of, because that's exactly what Betel does. It provides a platform for men and women to come in and rebuild their lives so that they can go on and build better lives, so that they can go on and be restored with their families. And some choose to stay on in the ministry of Betel. I think if I mentioned, we are in 22 nations. We have grown because it's men and women that have come through the doors of Betel. They've received that physical healing. They've accepted the Lord into their lives, and they've said, you know what, I want to do this for the next person. I want to reach out to the next person. And they're the ones that are going and predominantly helping to open up the doors of other cities and other countries. And so that's how we spread. That's what we do. We're providing a family. You know, we're coming in and saying, you know, your family's been dysfunctional. Many of our men and women, they've come from dysfunctional families. They've created their own dysfunctional families. They're living in chaos. And we're saying, come in and be a part of this family. Learn what it means to love deeply. Learn what it means to reach out and receive love, because they don't know how to receive love. You're being kind and showing practical ways of showing love to them, and they don't know what to do with that. Also, we're helping them emotionally. If anybody knows anything of addiction, it's very apparent that the age at which you begin your addiction, or the age at which many of our men and women have gone to prison, they tend to get stuck emotionally at that age. And so we're teaching them, you know, how to deal with their emotions. How do you deal with life's highs and lows without turning to drug or alcohol, or without resorting to anger? You know, so we're helping them, we're walking through all of that with them. And so when I visited Betel, I saw that is what it is, and that's exactly what we do. We're harmonizing all of that. You can go to the next slide. And so we're not just a rehab. It's easy to say Betel is a church plant, we're a rehab, but we don't like that term rehab, because we're not just a place to come and detox. We're not just a place to come and get off of the drugs or whatever. We're harmonizing. We're bringing, it's peer-led. So it's, like I said, it's the guy or the girl that has come through the doors of Betel broken, that have, been at their rock bottom. They've received love. They've received something. They may not even know the Lord yet, but they know that when they come through those doors, they sense peace. They sense love, and they've been cared for. And so they're the ones that are reaching down and caring for the next individual that comes through the doors. And that is so much more powerful than someone like myself, who's never walked in addiction, who has never, gone through that. That I can say to them, you can do this. You have, freedom is possible for you. You can change your life. And they might take it on board a little bit. It might mean something that I'm speaking kindly to them, but when it's the individual who has been there, that says, I've been there, I've slept, by the dumpster, I've struggled with this addiction, and they're saying, look at me, look how I am, how my life has changed, that means so much more. So it's peer-led. It's long-term. We're not going, okay, in 3 months you're fixed, you're out the door. It's for as long as they need. We recommend 12 to 18 months, because they got to learn. It's not just about getting that drug or whatever it is out of their system. It's about learning how to live clean, how to live well. And so that takes a long time. So we recommend 12 to 18 months for our individuals, but some of them will stay longer. They might stay 2 or 3 years. They might stay for life and help us build the ministry. And so that's what it is. And then what we do is it's free of charge for individuals to come in, but we set up various social enterprises. So in the UK, we had gardening landscape businesses, we had furniture shops, we restored furniture and resold it, we had cafes. And so all of our men and women, once they're kind of physically well, they will go out and participate in some aspect of our work program. And it does two things. Well, it does a few things. Firstly, it provides the funds that we need to pay for the residences, pay for the houses and cover the bills. But it provides training for these men and women who maybe have never worked a day in their life because they've been wrapped up in chaos at such a young age. Or maybe they've been the successful businessman, but they've lost it all. And so they don't have that confidence anymore. So it provides training for them as well, so that they are working to fund their own recovery. They're not just relying on a handout, because that is typically the mentality of the addict, is that they're wanting a handout. And so we're helping them to break that mentality and regain self-worth, because I've done this. I've worked for my recovery. I've contributed to this. And then they can see, like, I can be trusted. Maybe it's just, $10 to go to the store and buy some milk, but they've been entrusted with that. And so it builds that development as well. And then if you go to the next slide, I'm going to try to be quick here. So one of the things that we've recently done in the UK is we know that what we are doing is powerful. We know that it is providing so much more for the individual. We know that it's saving the government millions of pounds of money, and just in, if you think about, the thousands of men and women that have come through our doors over the years, just you think about, they're no longer in prison, they're no longer coming in and out of the emergency rooms, taking up funds and money there, they're no longer on social benefit, and so we know that it's providing a value. But we did a study in the last few years of just, we took a survey of people that have been through the doors of Betel and respond, and what we found that, is for all of those years, we generate about 36 million pounds in social benefit to the state, to the government in Betel a year. But then also what we worked out is that for every 1 pound that somebody invests in Betel, there's a 7 pound social benefit to the state and the individual. Because when you just think about the training that individual receives and all of that, so that's what we worked out. It's hard to put a dollar figure, isn't it? It's hard to put a figure on what you're doing, but that's, what we've worked out. But beyond that, we also, some of it we learned, our men and women that have come through the doors prior to Betel, probably about 26% of them were in full-time work or education. After leaving Betel, through these surveys, we found that about 70% of those men and women are now in full-time work or full-time employment. And most of them, they don't come to us because we're a church or a Christian ministry. They come to us because they're desperate, and we're the last resort for most of them. So about 24% would say that they had a faith when they came through the doors of Betel, but after leaving, we find that 59% of those men and women would say that they're walking with the Lord. And so that's what we do in a nutshell. And I'm sorry if that's been a little bit brief, but I want to give Dave a chance to speak as well. And I know you can go to the next slide. So we have a heart for the U.S., and we know that in 2020, there was 83,000 plus deaths for overdose. So that's about 229 people a day. And I don't know exactly, what your figures were in the U.S. when the COVID pandemic hit. But, all we kept hearing in the UK was how many deaths per day. And it was in the couple hundred. And you go, they're calling that a pandemic. But we have a pandemic here in the States, an opioid pandemic. And people are desperate. 229 people a day dying of drug overdose. And that was in 2020. I imagine after COVID and all of that, I imagine it's much higher now. And so we want to see those same results that we saw in the UK, we want to bring that to the US because we know there's a great need for it. And so that's why Dave and I are here. We're beginning to pioneer the work of Betel USA. And we want to see these same lives changed. And so we're so grateful for Jake and Josh and for the Manna Church for seeing that they want to invest in this as well. And if you go to the next slide, we've got our website up. Don't worry about that donation code because I know you guys are giving through ROC, and that is wonderful. So please give there. But if you want to go to our website, you can hear more about us. You can see testimonies. We've got a booth at the back, which Dave and I will be at. We've got a book here that is full of stories of men and women's lives who have been touched and changed through the ministry of Betel, who have come to know the Lord. And so we just want to bring the DNA of Betel to America and see lives changed. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to show you a testimony, a video testimony here of one of the guys whose lives have been changed, because I think it helps just see that face, and then Dave's going to come up and share. So.
My dad left the family home when I was small. It caused a brokenness in me and a deep insecurity in me that I so desperately wanted to fit in with every people group, every person. At a young age, I became an alcoholic. I started using psychedelic drugs and at school and taking ecstasy. Then I stopped going to school. I had many relationships. I worked as a chef for many years around the country, and it was never enough. No matter how good the relationship was, no matter how nice the area was, the house was, the wages were, I would always revert back. I just kind of went on a downward spiral, and I did the stereotypical drug route and ended up smoking heroin and crack in the end. I tried to take my own life. I took an overdose. I ended up in the hospital, and while I was there, I had a visit from a lady who was a family friend when I was growing up. She said, "Alex, there's a place you can go. It's called Betel." And I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't really care. Then her daughter came to see me, and she said, "Alex, there's a place you can go. Like, it's called Betel." I'm like, yeah, all right. And then the father came to see me of the same family, and he came and he said, "Alex, there's this place that will take you, that you can go to." And I suddenly realised, and I remembered that this family I knew when I grew up, they were Christians. They were a Christian family, and there was something in them that I was attracted to, and there was something in them that I believed. And even in spite of how depressed and how upset and down I was, I believed what they were telling me because they had the truth in them. So I just went, yeah, all right. And then the next day, or the day I was released from the hospital, they drove me to Watford. I was just dropped off at the door. I had nothing else. I had a bruised face, black teeth, long scruffy hair, and a bed gown that was open at the back. There was this genuine care, this genuine love that I'd never really experienced before, and this atmosphere. And for the first time in a long time, maybe since childhood, I could sit at the table and I could have a conversation with someone, and I could look them in the eye and I could be all right with just who I was. And even more than that, I could be okay in the silence. And I opened my heart very quickly to Jesus. Like, I was open to that because I was thirsty. I was thirsty for something new, and I still would think of God as this kind of unapproachable, far off, bearded, in the clouds kind of being. And there was a guy in Watford, and I used to listen to him pray, and he would speak to God as though God was his father. And I'd never heard anyone speak like that, like with such intimacy. And then I suddenly realised that he's father, that he's not some far off being. And that changed everything for me. And about 18 months into my journey in Betel, I made the commitment to follow Jesus. And that's when things really changed. And that's when I really felt the Lord say, now we're going to begin to start doing something special. So my dad, a couple of years into my journey in Betel, he got in contact with me, and I hadn't really seen him for a long time. And he said, hey son, just need to let you know that I've got terminal cancer and I'm dying. I just began to pray. Like every day I prayed for his salvation. And he was in hospital by this point on the morphine. You know, he was right at the end. And I felt Holy Spirit say, this is the moment. This is now. And I just began to unpack everything in my life, the insecurities, and I told him that I had forgiven him for not being there, and I told him that about Jesus and how Jesus forgives us, like when we accept him, that we are forgiven. And he just began to cry. And the presence of God just flooded his bed, and it flooded that place, and he just accepted Jesus as his Lord, and we just spent moments, precious moments there, and I kissed his head, and we left, and a week later he died, and he went to glory, and that was the last time I saw him. I met Jesus in Betel. I met Jesus through the people, through the work of Betel, through the family of Betel. I have a beautiful wife now. We have a gorgeous baby boy. We have a really rich life, really full, rich life, gospel-centered life, and we want for nothing. So I'm so grateful for Betel, for everything the Lord has done in my life.
Thank you for having us. I'm pleased to say it's really our honor and privilege to be here in the States. It's a childhood dream of my own to live and work in the States. And like Alex, I got saved. But pre getting saved, I was an addict for several years, and I was very much a washed-up heroin addict by the age of 20, looking for hope. And fortunately, I had a family, or my mum, I would say, who had her own journey of faith, and which, despite it all, I always believed that Jesus was real, and he would. And I cried out to God, "If you're real, save me and get me out of my city and help me get off heroin." And I'm a guy who, despite all the ways you could tell people how you got off drugs, my testimony is this: Jesus delivered me from addiction. I know Jesus delivered me from, and that's my story, and it's over 20 years ago. It often feels so far away, and when people tell me your story, I sometimes forget where to start, because it's like a distant memory, because obviously I've moved on in life, and our heart is to help people. And so it's guys, it's still great that we've managed to hold on to this relationship and nurture it, and it was great having you guys come in 2016, and I had the awe and wonder of meeting Josh, and obviously Chelsea, and the Gators, a Chick-fil-A owner, and all that kind of, you're one of them people, so I asked them all them stupid questions you ask people, about, is it real meat, all that kind of stuff. But clearly it is, and my children love going to Chick-fil-A, and the great thing is, where we live today, there's a Chick-fil-A literally around the corner, so we haven't got bored of it yet. There is that awe and wonder still. And obviously Jake and Danielle, and they came to our house where we was living and asking us, and that weird, when people introduce you to people and then leave you, that kind of thing. They came, and we've got this moment where we know they're inquisitive of Betel, and we're asking and these questions, want to know about our lives, and Jake turns around and says to me, "Why do you think you're the man to come to the USA?" That Shark Tank moment, he kind of turns into Mark Cuban and asks this question, which are and clearly Jake's Mr. Wonderful, just nice and pleasant, and he asked me this direct question. I don't want you to ever think of them as Shark Tank people, and the wives are just smiling, looking. I'm like, and to be honest, I'm like, trying to think, how do I answer such a question? Because it's the audacity to answer it any other way. But you know what? I just believe God's put something in my heart for America. I had a dream as a boy which got stolen in addiction, and I didn't think I'd ever see But I got married. My wife's from America. I got married in America. My children got passports. I'm still the immigrant, but that's okay. And we're working on that. And that was probably my best answer I can give, but God. And I don't know if he turned back into Jake Johnson or he stayed as Mark Cuban at that moment. But it's like, and that's all I got. God and my family and something in our hearts that has somehow held on through COVID of all that stuff. Can I just turn this sideways? Is that okay? I kind of don't want to keep going back into the dark even though it's light, and then back into the light even though it's dark kind of moment. But, you know, we've been obviously given the opportunity to share this is perfect now. And if you have your Bibles, turn to Acts chapter 3, and I just want to share a couple of moments. What time are we on? Have I literally got 6 minutes? 5.5 minutes? I think that's right. Is it about 10 past you finish? It's okay, so we can go to the next hour. I'm joking. We can go to Acts chapter 3. And I promise you, I'm going to bring a word of encouragement which is so simple today. I'm going to bring an acronym which is very American. I meet people all the time now, and you guys love your acronyms. It must be an American thing. Is that true? Do you have acronyms in Chick-fil-A? Clearly, yeah. It's like an acronym society, America. And I'm uneducated, so I'm learning. You know, I have to say that. You know, so when I was talking to a guy who works in the medical side of addiction, and he was spurring out these acronyms as part of his way of speaking. It's almost as if it should be in the American dictionary or something. But so I'm learning that, and I have one. But it's already been used. What's it called? ACA? Affordable Care Act. It's an acronym. Obamacare. You know, and when you look at that survey, that really is Affordable Care Act. That's it right there. Not because of government policy, it's because of the people of God. It is. That's the only thing you should like about, if you want to go political, socialism, because that's the people of God. Saving the nation. Saving families' lives. Stopping premature death and addiction. Stopping trauma in families. But I'm going to read from Acts chapter 3, verses 1 to 10 and hone in on there a little bit. And I love the way it starts. One day. Let's do the other American thing. One day. Can you all say one day? Absolutely, you're there. Great. Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 p.m. Now a man was lame from birth, was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. And Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Peter said, "Look at us." So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something from them. And then Peter said, "Silver or gold I do not have, but what I have I do give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk." Taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk, and then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. How that would disturb the peace. When all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. I find it such a great phenomenon, but I want to say this. When it comes to reaching out, when it comes to whatever terminology you want to use, the great thing about the book of Acts, it gives you the greatest template of how to do it. How any ordinary Christian man or woman, family, should live their life based on any given day. This one day. It's ordinary, it's simple, it's practical, and guess what? It's everyday life. everyday life. The encouragement of this story is this: on any given normal day, something extraordinary could, can, or might happen. Based on who? Based on me and you. Because of what we have and whom we believe. I love this story because it has absolutely nothing to do with gifts. It has absolutely nothing to do with charisma. It has absolutely nothing to do with education. It has absolutely nothing to do with what political side you're on. It matters who you have in your life. I love how the writer starts with one day. We don't really know how long it is after Pentecost. Yeah, you know, we know that was such an extraordinary moment, but on this one day, it's another extraordinary moment. It's so inclusive. Peter and John were going together up to the temple at the time of prayer, which was about 3 PM, and they came across a man who had been lame for life. And if you was to read into the whole story out in this, it turns out that this guy had been lame 40 years of his life. His whole life half of his life had been robbed from him because of this. He's never gone anywhere. He's never been anyone. It makes you wonder, it probably hasn't, based on the rules and regulations of the temple. He's probably never even gone in there. But on this extraordinary day, on this one day, he goes walking into the temple courts with these disciples. Actually, he does more. He goes bouncing in. He goes jumping in. He goes praising in on this one day. He was begging for money. He got salvation. He got deliverance. He got a whole different direction in life. Because it's cool. The response of Peter and John is, silver and gold I do not have. Anyone out there? How many of you ain't rich? How many of you can't afford it? Even if you're on the Affordable Care Act, you still can't afford it. We're on the Affordable Care Act. Well, the four, I'm not, but it's fine. I just live on the, whatever else they get right now. But what I do I give you in the name of Jesus, walk. Taking them, and it's wonderful the specifics you get out of the Bible. And look, it doesn't matter if you're right or left-handed, no, but for some reason, the writer acknowledges that Peter, for some reason, gives his right hand and he raises him up. And instantly, the man's feet and ankles became strong. And the truth is, how many of you struggle with how to pray for somebody when you're praying for healing? Because sometimes you're like me, you think, I've got to say it in a certain way. I've got to say it loud, or I've got to say it whatever. And here, Peter and John, they only do certain things. They speak to what is true, they speak to what they can give away, and what they do is take action. And to be honest, you're never, ever going to have a better response other than a helping hand, faith in Jesus, and faith to simply just give away. But for the man, on this ordinary day, what looked like at the start of the day was to sit at the gates and beg away, was now the day which, like all the others, he would walk into the temple, a new man. I don't know if there's such a thing of activation of faith, really. I really just want to put it a different way. How generous are you with what you've really got? How generous are you with what you've really got? I'll say it again. How generous are you with what you've really got? Truly, how bothered are you about salvation? Truly, how bothered are we for salvation for others? Because we could just live in a comfortable life. I'm okay, don't want any trouble. But truly, how generous are you? How generous are we on any given day? Because you know what our eyes see. You know that our eyes see suffering. You know that our eyes see somebody needing help. And even me, don't get me wrong, great. Betel USA, all that is great. But how many times do I say to the homeless person or the crippled person, to be honest, mate, I ain't got money for you. I ain't got it. Because I ain't got much myself, to be honest. But I'm just going to pray over your life. I might spend 10 minutes praying over your life. Fortunately for Peter and John, actually about 5 seconds. And ultimately something changed because he gave it away. I'm not one to say anything clever, because I'm not. But if there is a real activation of faith, I think it depends how generous we are with the faith we got. Because we're trusting for God to do all the rest. Actually, you do see better from this level. It's really cool. It's like I'm in the room. For the church here, this was the first miracle, I believe. Which was the second time now that all the church, the whole church at that time, was brought into eyeshot of the city, especially those around the city. And you know what reaches further than that is people's gossiping, talk about what had happened, not by what the eye could see. So it makes you wonder, Manna, or Betel, whatever, based on the week ahead or the weeks ahead of the 1 days, of how extraordinary it could be based on your generosity with the faith we got. But what I'm going to do, forgive me, is give you the acronym using the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, all that kind of stuff. And we know that's what the policy is. But the people of God need to understand that we can have our own. It could be called the Availability Care Act. How available are you with your faith today? Reaching out to, challenging yourself, one person a day, asking God for one person a day. You know what? We don't even know what Peter and John prayed that day. We don't know if they got into a quiet corner and said, on this journey, Lord, will you give us one person? Now, ask yourself a question. If they did pray that, if they were led to that one person, if it was you, where God has put you in this position, where this guy asked you for money, what would you do? Would you make an excuse? I'm just going to pray, and then I'll come back and have a chat. Is that okay? Because I'll feel better when I'm praying. I feel enriched. I feel larger than life when I pray. But there was no time to pray, was there? It was just, how available are you? What is your availability like? Or we could call it the Awareness Care Act. Are you truly aware of what's around you? Are you only aware of what's around you based on when you come to church? But I know. You're all very aware of what's around you. But I'm going to call it this, the Awareness Courage Act. Because it's going to take me and you getting over the palpitations, the heartbeat when it starts to get a bit nervous. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to stumble upon my words and all that kind of stuff. Because always bear in mind, and I said this last night at the table, you know, it's clear they like Chinese. They brought us all Chinese. So if you want to spend time with your pastors, just say, you know what, I'm gonna get some Chinese. Clearly, you've got to get them around, you know, and do that. It was lovely. And I said it last night, and I'm starting to come to a close in a couple of minutes, if that's okay. Always bear in mind, based on the risk and reward, okay? One miracle does so much. I don't care how educated you are. One miracle is going to do more than 1 million preachers, by the way. 1 million apologists, or whatever you want to call it. One miracle changes everything. One miracle changes everything. If you want to be aware, challenge yourself to always ask yourself, in the moment of hesitation, one miracle, Dave? One miracle, Jake? One miracle, Josh? One miracle, Brenda? Just might change everything. One miracle. It says people came flooding to them. How about that for unknowingly not know about risk and reward? To bring everything into full light, the power of God unto salvation. Because in this chapter 3, going to chapter 4, we hear the best statements of faith that salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. And you know what the other statement is? When they saw the courage, remember it's in the ACA, the acronym, of Peter and John, and realized they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished and took note that these men had been with Jesus. And in Acts chapter 3, verse 16, it's simply this. By faith in the name of Jesus, this man who you see and know was made strong. It's Jesus' name and the faith that comes through him that has completely healed him, as you can all see. That's the Jesus we know. That's the Jesus we praise. But is that the Jesus we give away and share? With this awareness, courage, act. Your acts, my acts, acts of faith. One miracle will do more in the moment than many have done for a lifetime. As we've tried to toil with how to preach, what to teach, etc., etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to do that because we all are saved and we all need feeding, and that's the job. But the one miracle could bring everyone. It could bring you guys a whole lot of problems. Because you know what a whole lot of problems are? A lot of people. Wouldn't you like that, church? The whole sanctuary here being filled with people wanting to hear about Jesus, wanting to hear about the miracle. It's only one miracle, by the way. It's not miracle after, it's just one. A particular one. The guy they all had pity for, laughed at, whatever, was now walking and talking and bouncing and jumping. It doesn't matter the qualification you have or the low charisma or the charisma you have or how wealthy or educated you are. What matters is recognizing the truth is this for all of us. We have this opportunity every day if we want to be aware. We have this opportunity every day if we want to choose courage because we want to choose to act. Just like Peter and John. My concluding thoughts, Jake, is always remember one moment, one man, one miracle. Awareness, courage, act. One ordinary day became an extraordinary outcome for one man, for the whole church, by the way. All this started on one day. Keep believing for that one day. For you as a body, for us, keep believing for us. For us, it's the same of starting the pioneering work of Betel. One day, God is going to do something extraordinary. Let's keep our focus there. Is that okay? Be blessed. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Oh, the preacher's got his Bible out. That means he's going to preach another message. I do want to share a couple things as the worship team comes up and we get ready to close. So, like Dave and Brenda and Josh said, I went over to the UK in 2018 and then again in 2019. And I went there looking for something that would be able to minister to folks who were just like what we talked about. Like, last week we talked about how Paul said we've become like the scum of the earth. Like, that's how people look at Christians in the society he was in. And we have people that we sometimes look at like that in our society. Let's be honest. We don't give them as much thought as we should. We're not super courageous when it comes to ministering to them. And Josh and I both had a heart to be like, is there something we can do to encourage these people? And so we went over there, and I'll just be honest with you. I was blown away, not just because I saw people who had struggled with addictions and no longer struggle with addictions, because I saw that. I mean, I met Alex, who we saw in the video. What blew me away was I met Jesus. Like, he said he met Jesus at Betel. Man, I met Jesus at Betel. Like, I saw people whose lives were transformed by living in community with other believers. They were loved on, their dignity was restored, and I actually came back. I came back a little bit frustrated with my small group. I came back because what I realized was there were these people who had spent 5, 10, 15 years, some of them, living on the street, broken lives, filling their veins with stuff that's just gonna kill their body, it's gonna kill their mind. But man, when I sat down with them, the spirit, the life that flowed out of them, that encouraged me, that blessed me, was dramatically different than what I saw from people that I would sit in small group with. We would dedicate a couple hours a week to church, a couple hours a week to small group. Maybe we'd read our Bible once in a while. But man, they had so much, but they didn't really love Jesus near as much as some of these other folks did. And it challenged me. I came back and I challenged my small group. I'm like, you guys need to go to Betel. Like, you need to go and spend a week there living with these men, living with these women, and seeing what God can do. Just like devote your life to him the way that they have. Because Jesus came in and he restored these people's lives. And the cool thing about it, I know they didn't talk about their businesses so much. Betel, over 80% of their funding for the ministry that they do, it's a completely free ministry. You don't pay a dime to come into Betel. And they don't make you stay there either. You can come in and you can leave. Over 80% of their money comes from them internally. They take these men and they take these women and they show them Jesus, and they restore their dignity by teaching them skills. They teach them how to restore furniture. Like, what a great discipleship work. Like, you're scrubbing old stuff off furnitures, you're restoring that, and then you're selling it. You're working out in a garden. They have in the city of Birmingham and in the city of Hexham, they have the #1 rated cafe on Yelp. I don't know if it still is, but I know it used to be. The #1 rated cafe on Yelp, it's ran exclusively by recovered and recovering drug and alcohol addicts. Exclusively by them. It's great food. Prince William and Princess Kate came and visited because they were blown away. They're like, how do you guys do this stuff with these people? It's amazing, because God is in the business of restoring people's lives. That's what he does. This series, we're not just focused on the people that are just our neighbors. We're focused on every people, every tribe, every tongue, because God's promise, the Great Commission of the Old Testament, Genesis chapter 12, this is what God said: I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. In you. He's talking there to Abram, but he's talking to us through him, because we're his sons. Obviously, Abram wasn't gonna bless everybody that lived after him. It's you and me. So every single person, we're supposed to have a part in seeing the gospel advance. And so this week, as you guys go, the closing here today, you guys all got a little envelope as you came in. I don't want you to put anything in that today, all right? That's just something for you to look at. So I challenged you guys last week that we're gonna spend the next few Wednesdays and we're gonna pray. We're gonna fast on Wednesdays. I'm asking you to do that. So if you have the faith for it, I would encourage you, just spend the next 2 Wednesdays fasting and asking God, like, what part do you want me to play? This is the only special offering we're ever gonna take up at Manna. Once a year, we're gonna do the ROC, and we're gonna go after it. We're gonna go after some big, big goals. Their goal, they need to raise about $2 million. It's a big goal. Now, I don't know that we're gonna raise it all. There's a lot of other ministries that are gonna come alongside them and help, but man, they've already got a lot of money because people believe in them and people believe in the mission. and we want to see lives restored. We want to see people changed. So can we all stand together? I want to pray, and our worship team's going to lead us. If you have a prayer need, if you need anything today, if you want to turn your life over to Jesus, you haven't done it, man, I'm going to be down here. I want to talk to you. If you have something that's going on, a struggle in your life, I'm going to be down here. I want to pray for you, lay hands on you. If you want to talk to Dave and Brenda, they're going to be at a table out back. So when you leave, please go by, shake their hands, thank them for the work they're doing. They've uprooted their family and moved here because they believe in this, and we believe in them. So just hug their neck, tell them you're proud of them, shake their hand, and let's all praise Jesus. I'm gonna say a quick prayer, and then we're gonna worship Jesus together. Lord, God, we thank you that you are in the business of changing people's lives, God. That's what you do, Lord. You changed my life. You made me new. God, you've given us so much. To whom much is given, much is expected. And so God, I know you expect a lot from us. And God, I want to give you every single bit of that. Simple things like worship. Big things like my time, my passion. Lord, it all belongs to you. You're worthy of every bit of it, God. We love you, Jesus. I pray you would quicken our spirits, Lord. This week as we go out, help us realize that your goal, Lord, your plan for the earth is each of us, God. I pray we feel that burden. We feel that burden in a new and fresh way, and that we walk in it, God. We love you, Lord. Thank you that you choose us, God. Thank you that you chose to use us, weak, broken people, to change the earth. In Jesus' name, amen.